would like, if I may, to take you on a strange journey.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Real Estate Realities with the Rebel Broker. My name's Robert Whitelaw, and I am the Rebel Broker, licensed real estate broker in the state of California, member of the National Association of Realtors. But please, don't hold that against me. We've got a good show for you today, folks. The folks at WalletHub, one of my favorite places to check out in terms of getting interesting, insightful data about different markets. They have put out their 2017's best real estate market numbers. On August 28th, they released that. Of course, I will be including a link to this particular post in the show notes, so make sure to check it out if you'd like to get the details. I think this is a great tool. We've talked about we do the WalletHub thing as frequently as they release these things, so it tends to be a pretty cool resource for us. So I'm excited to share it with you today and maybe go over it and see what we think. And I'd love to hear from you guys. I'm toying with cherry picking a few of the most enticing communities from here and doing a more detailed dive into those communities, giving it its own show. So I don't know if that's something y'all would be interested in. If so, please reach out. The best way to do that is to head on over to therebelbroker.com. From there, you can click on contacts. It's right there in the menu bar. Send along any ideas, suggestions, or observations, or let me know if you like the idea of me doing shows where we focus on a specific community. I've floated this idea before to relatively lackluster response from the audience. It's something I can't help thinking you guys would like, if not because you're interested specifically in that community, but maybe because each time you do this, I'm using the different techniques that we talk about kind of spread out among a lot of different shows, but also it's a way to see how some of the techniques I try to share that I try to make generally applicable, how I use them for different specific areas. So things that we try to pass along here that are an example, a specific example that I didn't then try to translate into a general rule, something that you can use more widely. This would be a way for us to sort of walk through that process and see how that application is made general, or what kinds of good insights we can pull out of other things we've learned from other evaluations, right? And as you do this is something I encourage all of you to do on a regular basis. And even if you don't have any money, and if you don't have any plan to have money soon, but real estate is something you are interested in, that you realize real estate is a great way to push forward, to get to the next level, whatever is defining the next level for you. This exercise of doing this is excellent for you. It's this kind of thing is like any muscle, and if you don't use it, you don't develop it. So even if you don't see yourself in a position right now today to jump out and buy that first investment property, let me suggest you still do this. Let's say right now you're thinking, it's going to be 8 months. I'm starting to save. I know what I want to buy. I know the kind of property I'm interested in, but it's really going to be 8 months. So I don't really feel like it makes sense for me to do much of this kind of stuff now. Couldn't be more wrong. It should be number one on your list, so that once you hit the ground with the resources in place that you feel that you need in order to take that next step comfortably, you'll have this skill already developed to the point where you won't have to learn lessons while you're actually spending your money. Doesn't that sound better? Doesn't it sound better to make some mistakes and learn from those before you actually put any of your own personal capital at risk? I think it does. So let me suggest you do this. I know it's been a long time since we've sort of done a setting your goals show and all that kind of stuff. Way back, it was probably 2 years ago now, we did one. We actually did several in a row about how to really get yourself going and get yourself focused on your goals and to stick with a routine that emphasizes your goals. So let me just put one out there. Let me suggest to everyone, whether you are a new investor who's already maybe got a couple of investment properties, but you really feel like you could have gotten more out of it the last time you did a transaction if you had just had a little bit more, savvy on the analysis end of it. if you're a brand new person who thinks you're a year or more away from making that first investment for whatever reason, or you're someone who's just is interested in the numbers of real estate, set aside 30 minutes a week to do this. Find a community you're interested in and start doing an analysis of what makes sense. Look at the areas, drill down to the detail, find specific properties, and run sample numbers. I do this stuff all the time. On a daily basis, I probably run a property on average every day. Usually it's clustered. Maybe one day a week I'll take an hour or more and I'll just run through a bunch of different properties from a bunch of different areas I'm interested in and see if the numbers bear out this idea that it could be positive cash flow or that there could be an interesting opportunity there. So go ahead and take advantage of that. I think it would be something well worth your time. But where's a place to start? Where do you want to find out the communities you should be maybe doing this on? Well, this is a great place to start. The 2017 Best Real Estate Markets as put out by WalletHub. If you aim for long-term growth, equity, and profit, you'll need to look beyond tangible facts, just square footage and style. Those factors certainly drive up property values. From an investor standpoint, however, they hold far less significance than historical market trends and the economic health of residents. So that's kind of where they go. Now, I like to also make sure to remind you, if let's say you find something like this on the internet yourselves, always look into their methodology. And one thing I love about the WalletHub people is they actually have a whole section just on their methodology. They may use a word that implies something to you, profitability or affordability or whatever, and you may in your mind think you know what that means. And then you go and you read their methodology and realize, yeah, you know what? That's not what I thought it meant. So it's always important to be able to get a methodology. If you can't find out the methodology used in data you're using to make your financial decisions, I'm going to suggest not to give it as much weight as you would reports that do give you the methodology, that define exactly what they're communicating through the data. Okay, so let's go ahead and get a little bit of that. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty of the methodology. But what we will do is what we usually do. We'll talk about the top communities they suggest and the bottom communities that they suggest. I think it's always interesting to sort of get the extremes of both ends to see what's going on. But let's do a real quick check here on the methodology in a short form. We won't go over the whole thing. According to quoting the article at WalletHub, quote, to determine the best local real estate markets in the U.S., WalletHub's analysts compared 300 cities of varying sizes across 21 key indicators of housing market attractiveness and economic strength. Our data is set ranges from median home price appreciation to home sales turnover rate to job growth. Read on for our findings, a ranking of the cities based on size and expert insight from a panel of researchers. And then, of course, you can go check out their methodologies. I think we'll start off. Do we want to start off with the good news or the bad news? I guess may as well start off with the good news. Very interesting data here. A couple of surprises, simply because I'm not sure I buy that they should be in this ranking, or at least figuring this high. So we can discuss that. Number 10 on our list, because some of these are ones that we would shy away from because we think they're at a peak, right? Some of these are areas that absolutely are ones where everyone I've talked to is talking about how tough it is to buy. But let's see here. Number 10 on our list is Denver, Colorado, with a total score of 71.74. It ranked number 4 in the real estate market rank. And it ranked number 149, which totally makes sense, in the affordability and economic environment rank. So that's absolutely something I think to keep in mind. The real estate market, the affordability end is probably where a new investor would want to be. Now, what's interesting is once we get higher up in this list, the first half of the list is really made up of communities that may represent a great real estate market ranking, but don't represent a very good affordability and economic environment ranking. So let's keep that in mind as we move through these. So Denver is the one we just did at number 10. Number 9, another city that has been on our list repeatedly. We've even interviewed a couple of folks from here. Nashville, Tennessee scored a 71.9, ranked number 7 on the real estate market scale and 81st in the affordability and economic environment rank. That's a little bit low on the affordability and economic environment rank. But given what I've heard about Nashville, I think it seems like an opportunity. But what do we try to do here? We try to spot the places that are about to become great opportunities. We've been talking about Nashville for over a year. In fact, the first time we talked about Nashville, if I'm not mistaken, on this list, it appeared, and it was in the top 10 in both categories. So it was not only a great real estate market, but it was also a great affordability and economic environment rank, or in terms, and also in terms of return on an investment. So I think that this number kind of indicates, yeah, you know what? Nashville has done this growth, but its affordability has suffered as a result. So number 8 on the list, and this is going to be one of many from this state. And boy, I tell you, it seems like every other report, this state tends to dominate. The last time we did this list, this state was far less prevalent in the top 10. Carrollton, Texas, with a 72.35. It ranked number 11 on real estate market rank. It ranked number 8 overall, but 11th in real estate market and number 22 in affordability and economic environment. Next, number 7, I was just there, or at least it was one of the places I was in, Bellevue, Washington, at 72.62. It ranked number 5 in overall real estate market, and it ranked number 50th in terms of affordability. And you know what? Bellevue was in that sort of envelope of properties I considered when I was looking at investments to potentially house my son at college up there. Now, Bellevue is south of Redmond, and maybe a little bit too far to make commuting a super easy thing since he doesn't have a car. And so probably outside of the envelope I'd be looking at. But Bellevue was a nicer area. And again, it was another one of those areas where I saw tons of apartments being built. So that was kind of interesting. Next, barely a stone's throw away from Bellevue, Washington, number 6 overall is Seattle, Washington, 73.33 total score. Real estate market rank is 3rd. And I don't think that surprises anybody. But the affordability and economic environment ranking also will not surprise anybody if you've been listening to this show, comes in at 145th. So I'm not 100% sure that it really is one of those deals where for you as a brand new investor, something like Seattle might make sense. But it's showing the kind of growth that we've talked about and we understand, and it's bloated quite a bit, but its ranking in terms of affordability is really just not there if it's something you're looking to jump in on. But you know what? Another theory to apply to some of these cities that are in the top 10 in terms of real estate market is to also look at what we talked about in the Bay Area. Now, in the Bay Area, and particularly San Francisco, we talked about the mushroom effect. And actually, I think the reason why places like Bellevue are on this list is because of the mushroom effect. And what I mean by that is, think about the place where everybody wants to be, Seattle in this case, being where the mushroom's growing. And as it grows, it casts a shadow and pushes out the sunlight in terms of affordability to people and forces folks to look for the sunshine outside of that shadow of that mushroom. And places like Redmond and Bellevue are those kinds of communities. Now, Seattle is slightly unique in that it is really tough to get to Seattle unless you're crossing bridges, particularly in the communities to the east of it. So that's another dynamic, but you want to understand that all the areas surrounding Seattle, most of the areas directly southwest of Seattle would be better. But most of the areas north and east are going to likely benefit from the fact that Seattle is great from a real estate ranking standpoint, but not so great from an affordability standpoint. So let's pretend I wanted to research each and every one of these areas on these top 10 lists. Seattle would be one where I probably would not look at Seattle, the city. I might just to get an understanding of how things are distributed within the city itself, but I would spend some special attention on the cities in the periphery around Seattle, places people would go that are likely to grow because of the costs involved in buying a property in Seattle right now. Okay, let's move up to number 5 on our list. That's Richardson, Texas, with a score of 73.52 overall. It ranked 6th in real estate market ranking, and it ranked 11th in affordability. So that's actually the first super sexy one, aside from Nashville, that I like. I like the blend there. I like the fact that it's great real estate opportunity, but I like the fact that the affordability isn't insane. And that would be one I would look at. I'd want to get a better understanding of the layout of the markets, as we've discussed. Now, for those of you who are members of the Rebel Underground, and if you'd like to join the Rebel Underground, the easiest way to do that is to text the word Rebel Broker to the number 44222. That's text the word Rebel Broker to the number 44222. Now, members of the Rebel Underground will have already gotten a link to the video that helps you go to a metro area, a large city, and then take a look at the numbers as they are presented on sites like Trulia and Zillow and drill down to figure out what areas should you focus on for your potential investment. And if you'd like to access that video, go ahead and just join the Rebel Underground, and your very first email will give you a link so that you can check that video out. Okay, so that was number 5, Richardson, Texas. Number 4 on our list, Cary, North Carolina, with a score of 73.82, scored 14th in the real estate market rankings, but it scored 5th in the affordability. So that's another good one. That's one I would absolutely consider looking at to get an understanding. It would be very important. I don't know anything about Cary, North Carolina, but I'd absolutely want to know more about what makes it a place people want to live in. Is there a lot of high tech going on there? Is there growth in certain industries? Those types of things. You want to figure out why people go there. Number 3 on our list, Allen, Texas. Texas once again. In fact, Texas makes up the top 3 properties in this overall scoring, or top 3 cities. And in addition to that, are rocking it on the affordability scale. So these would be ones I would obviously be drawn to immediately. So number 3, Allen, Texas, 75.25 is its overall score. It scored 9th in real estate market, and it scored 2nd in affordability. Awesome combination, and seems like a great place to potentially focus and see if we might find some great deals for investing. Number 2 on our overall list is McKinney, Texas, with a 79.89 score, scored 2nd in the real estate market rankings, and scored 3rd in the affordability and economic environment rank. So here we've got the top 1, 2, and 3 overall ranked properties are also the top 1, 2, and 3 property or areas in the affordability ranking. I don't think there's a surprise why that might be the case. Finally, number 1 on our list, Frisco, Texas, with a score of 83.01, scored number 1 in the real estate market and number 1 in the affordability and economic environment ranking. So I would absolutely take a closer look at a place like Frisco, figure out what's going on there, figure out how much stability there is, and potentially get over there and see if you can't get involved in that market if it's something that sounds attractive to you. So let's also talk about one more thing. What else makes this report particularly interesting is once you look at these, you realize that Frisco and McKinney, Texas, border each other. I think that's kind of interesting simply because it shows that there's a bigger market move going on in that area that I think potentially indicates a lot more of a payoff here. So you wouldn't need to just focus on McKinney or Frisco. In fact, when you look at the map, Allen, Texas is south of Frisco and McKinney. So Frisco, McKinney, and Allen could be combined into one overall market that you're considering looking into. To give you a sort of a broader understanding, this is all just north of Dallas. And I think it's great that these areas are showing these kinds of growth. Now, just to get an idea of what we're talking about, the average listing price in Frisco is, $561,738. $2,000 a month is the median rent per month. Now, that clearly does not meet our 1% rule. Just to recap, the 1% rule is a really quick and dirty way to, off the top of your head, kind of figure out relatively easily what the ballpark rent should be for a property at a given price. So if we take this average, and of course we all know, averages, the thing that is the average doesn't really exist. You need to get into specific properties to figure these things out, which is why it's so important to drill down into neighborhoods of various areas. If we went with a purchase price, an average purchase price of $561,738, that would mean that we would be financing, assume we put 20% down, that would be financing $449,390.04, and 1% of that is $4,493.90 per month. So the goal would be that you'd be able to get rent of that amount, of basically $4,500 a month. And of course, this is way below that. Well, one great thing that you can do when you get into a view on Trulia, for instance, where you want to get an idea of what prices are. If you drag and drop over the map, if you go to the market overview map at Trulia for different cities, you can drag your mouse over various areas and see where prices are lower, or get an idea for the prices for homes in these areas. And as you do that, as I do it, I'm seeing a lot of different interesting variations here, from 414, 414, 370, 377, 365, 498. What's really interesting is I've mentioned this before, I am also a guy who is not a fan of crime stuff. So you can turn on that particular overlay and take a look at it once you have sort of gotten an idea of what sounds like. Here's one, 293,000, right in the heart, 319,000, 219, so 298. So we're getting into some more interesting numbers. If we then look at crime in those areas, we can see whether or not we're getting these lower prices simply because of issues like that. So in this case, there is a little bit of that. However, I'm seeing some areas where that's not the case, where we're getting relatively good performance at, say, a $239,000 price point, which I like. So there's some areas right there in downtown which are a little bit riskier, but by and large, you're going to find that there's not a whole lot of areas that you would typically avoid in either McKinney or Frisco or Allen. These are all relatively mellow. So far, so good. It's looking like good opportunities there. So go and check out any of these ones we've talked about, whether it's Nashville, Frisco, or anywhere else. Check these out. See what you think. Now, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to take a quick look at the worst performing cities on this list, because that's always good for a laugh. Thanks for listening. We'll be back in just a minute.
Are you ready to jump in and start your search for your first investment property? Maybe you've decided that it's time to own your own home, or maybe you're ready to sell your home and move on to something new. No matter what your goal is, the Rebel Broker can help. That's right, aside from hosting this show, I am also the owner, broker of Whitelaw & Sons Real Estate Services right here in Silicon Valley. With over 25 years experience serving Silicon Valley, Morgan Hill, San Martin, and Gilroy, I or one of my great agents can help you achieve your goals in real estate. So if you're ready to look into taking that next step towards achieving your real estate goals, point your browser at www.soldbyrobert.com. That's www.soldbyrobert.com and get in touch. Let me show you how I will earn your business and your respect. Again, that's www.soldbyrobert.com, or you can call me at 408-852-0525. California Bureau of Real Estate ID 00984-909.
Welcome back, everyone. We are chatting about WalletHub's latest data release. I love these guys. I know I mentioned that before. I'm saying it again because that's how serious I am about it. Best real estate markets for 2017. They got their real estate marketing rank and their affordability and economic environment rank that we're running off of here. We've, as you know, because you've been listening for 20 minutes, we've already covered the top ones, and I thought it'd be interesting to cover the worst. A lot of interesting domination on this particular 10 worst in terms of region of the country. And what's particularly interesting is the 297th out of 300 is a community that in the past has really been hyped as amazing, right? And it just shows you how these things can turn and how important it is to pay attention to what's going on in various markets. And I think we kind of called it here. A couple of years ago, we were strongly suggesting retreating from this particular investment area. So we'll cover that in a second. We're going to quickly run through this list, though. So Brockton, Massachusetts comes in at 290 on this list, with a ranking of 285 in the real estate market and 289 in its affordability. 291st was New Haven, Connecticut, with a ranking of a total score of 42.33. Their real estate market rank 289. Their affordability rank 273. 292nd on the list, Montgomery, Alabama, comes in at 42.27. The real estate market rank is 296. Affordability and economic environment rank is 206. Number 293 on the list, Waterbury, Connecticut. So Connecticut is here again, and you will find that Connecticut will be here again and again. Their score at Waterbury is 41.37 with a real estate market rank of 293 and an affordability and economic environment ranking of 266. Now, next on the list is not going to surprise anyone, but it's also going to be a shocker because this is the exact same city that we see lots of reports indicate amazing returns on investment. This is a city I've always been very cautious about. Whenever we've talked about it and portrayed it as a good investment opportunity, I've always suggested extreme caution and getting very tightly plugged into what the ground truth is here. Number 294, Detroit, Michigan, with a score of 41.24, real estate market rank at 290, affordability and economic environment rank of 290. Detroit is interesting because you have to really, I think, understand Detroit. What gets Detroit surviving? What kept it surviving was the automobile industry. That the bottom kind of fell out of that. So you need to really understand what is the projected future. Now, Detroit is not a small town. It's a big city. But what is going to pave the way to a better market for Detroit? Because at the same time, we're having this conversation about being in the top 10 worst real estate markets, not just from how the market in general is doing, but also from an affordability standpoint. What would possibly make Detroit sexy enough for it to make it to lists that talk about return on investment? Remember, we talked about return on investment, about 4 months ago? And Detroit was in the top 10. And I was flabbergasted then that Detroit was making those kinds of numbers. But again, I think it comes down to a knowledge of ground truth and the areas that are likely to continue to thrive in Detroit, despite so much of it being in decline. And my same advice would apply today. You really need to know the ground truth in Detroit, I think, to ride that wave and avoid the risk. So number 295 on the list, another entry from Connecticut, Hartford, Connecticut, scoring 40.74 on the total score with a ranking of 288th in the real estate market rank and a ranking of 297 on the affordability and economic environment ranking. Number 296, another one from Connecticut, Bridgeport, Connecticut, with a score of 40.70, ranking 294th on the real estate market ranking and 278th on the affordability and economic environment. Next is the city that we were worried about a long time ago. And again, suggested that this probably was not a great place to invest, even when lots and lots of folks were saying it was. Interesting that it's number 4 on the list in terms of worst places. It's been hit with all kinds of stuff. It was so influenced by a lot of that offshore sort of quote unquote money laundering that was going on in terms of buying real estate in this city through these offshore accounts to maintain your anonymity. I can't help but think a lot of that plays into it. Of course, we're talking about Miami Beach, Florida, scoring 39.48. The real estate market rank for Miami Beach, Florida was 297th, and its affordability and economic environment ranked 234th. And again, you can either think you might think that the 297 real estate market rank might indicate some good prices. The affordability index would tend to fight that. Can great deals still be found in communities like this? Yeah, but I think it's one of those things where ground truth is king. Now, the 3 worst cities on our list are all from the same state. And as we noticed with good news on the other end of the scale, where all those cities were right next to each other, we see really the same thing. The 3 cities that round out the 3 worst are Elizabeth, New Jersey, with a total score of 36.54, ranking 299th in the real estate market rank and 275th in the affordability and economic environment rank. Number 299 overall was Paterson, New Jersey, with a total score of 35.42, with a real estate market rank of 298 and affordability ranking of 296. And coming in at number 300, the worst of the worst in everything, Newark, New Jersey, with a score of 32.93, ranking 300th in the real estate market and 300th in affordability and economic environment. So the worst in all measures. And what's interesting is that Newark is kind of in the center. Newark borders directly Elizabeth, New Jersey to the south. And then, let's see, Paterson is north of Newark with several cities between, a little place called Harrison, Montclair, Clifton, and then you hit Paterson. So clearly this is sort of a regional thing. This is a problem or an issue that has a broader footprint than just these specific cities. There's clearly something going on there that indicates these problems. We point these out as a way for you to calibrate to what the markets are doing. As I pull up Bloomfield, for instance, or what am I seeing here? Oakland, New Jersey, Bloomingdale, New Jersey. I'm seeing foreclosures showing up in these cities, and that can tell you, I think, quite a bit. But overall, these are numbers that should serve as an interesting signpost to you. Now, and also remember that in some of these areas, like Detroit, where there's a bit of chaos going on. I mean, I've had guys, I have investor clients in the past who said, hey, don't underestimate the power of some of these markets where things seem horrible. There is profit in chaos. And in some of these instances, if you can go in with a sharp eye and see what direction things are going in various areas and anticipate what's happening overall, are we at a bottom point for some reason in these communities, or are these areas that are just down and heading further south? If you can get plugged into that kind of data, I think it's a potentially interesting opportunity. I think it's also an interesting opportunity when you see big disparities between the real estate market ranking and the affordability ranking. For instance, we saw that with Seattle and Denver, really top-notch real estate rankings in terms of the real estate market, but not good in affordability. So obviously you wouldn't want to draw your eye to that. Now, if you take a look at just environmental ranking, if we were just to rank them by environmental ranking for affordability, we could see that we've got some great affordability in, of course, Frisco, Allen, and McKinney, because those rounded out the top three. But then we also see great affordability in places like Gilbert, Arizona, which is a suburb of Phoenix. We see Cary, North Carolina, which is one that we talked about when we were talking about the top 20. We see areas like Richardson, Texas, which we already talked about. We see Peoria, Arizona, which is number 12th in affordability, but 86th in real estate market rank. So there's these interesting disparities where you can find some of the sexiest stuff on this. Now, if you'd like to look for areas in your neck of the woods, if you want to see what different communities are putting out there in terms of how their market is doing, check this out. Go over to the website, therebelbroker.com. I will, of course, have a link to this report so that you can see for yourself what are some places within your comfort zone. Remember, we've talked about not necessarily shying away from investing in places that are outside of a comfortable commute for you or a comfortable drive. But then we've talked to some really good investor folks in our interview series where they talk about that comfort zone being nothing more than a few hour drive away from where you live. So this could be a great way for you to home in on places within that drive for you that might represent a great opportunity. All right, so now if we look at what defines, I wasn't really going to go over a lot of the methodology stuff, but I think it's a good idea to sort of get an idea of what defines the real estate market. The home value forecast is the number one item. This metric is based on Zillow's home value forecast, which predicts the Zillow Home Value Index 1 year from June of 2017. The next number they look at is median home price appreciation. It's given full weight. Both of those numbers are given full weight. Average number of days until a house is sold is given full weight. Share of homes selling for a gain given full weight. Share of underwater homes given full weight. Home sales turnover rate given full weight. Ratio of rent price to sale price full weight. Foreclosure rate. Share of delinquent mortgage holders is given full weight. Number of bank held homes. Vacancy rate. So these are all things that absolutely communicate what I would want to know, the things I would consider important in calculating the healthiness of the real estate market being important. I think those are all big. Affordability. Housing affordability in general is given double weight in this one, and I think that's absolutely the way it should be. Maintenance and affordability is given full weight. Population growth is given full weight. Job growth is given full weight. Unemployment rate is given full weight. Underemployment rate is given full weight. And the median credit score is given full weight. So absolutely a good reflection of affordability, and also a good representation through a higher rating in this particular subject of how likely are you to have good renters in those areas. So a very good set of measurements, I think, to use when you're trying to evaluate what areas you want to be investing in. All right, folks, I hope this has been good for you. I always love these. I find that reports like this from WalletHub inspire me to look in new areas based on some of these assessments. I hope it has been the same for you. As always, I certainly hope we have finished off this show giving you far more than you've invested in terms of your valuable time, which I absolutely appreciate. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to y'all next time.